Shalom YouTube, Sister Kate here with further discussion on the whole MGTOW incel situation. And I'll admit, when I made the first video after I learned that Alec Minassian was an incel and his running into people in the van was fueled by that belief system, I was kind of shocked. So I made my first video, and then I was not even expecting, but a lot of MGTOW people, men, started commenting on that video. And I gotta give them credit. Most of them were not reactionary, and they were trying to help me to understand what was going on. They were trying to get me to understand the point of view there. And I do appreciate the fact that these men were, instead of being accusatory or reactionary, they were just, and I want to say gently, just explaining what was going on there. And the more they explained, the more I understood. And the more I understood, the more the entirety of the situation has come to me. And wow. Several things have in relation to all of that have occurred, or at least I have realized several things, and so I wanted to talk about them a little bit. One is how strongly the feminist movement affected these men. The fact that women are divorcing men over what the men consider not divorceable things. And again, I'm not in a situation like that, but these men are talking about a guy comes home with a freezer full of meat, he puts it all away, he wakes up the next morning and his wife is having him arrested and then divorces him. And he doesn't understand why. They're talking about the breakup of the family that divorce causes. When people marry, at least in the biblical model, the household belongs to the man. He's the head of it. He's responsible for teaching it, for providing for it. And then the woman and the children are his. They take his name. They live in the house that he provides. And so when divorce happens, it's like the idea, the reality of his life is now torn apart. Someone has taken his family away. And they get mad. And the male children get mad because they're being denied a father. And a lot of times the single women don't understand the male child. And so it's not a happy relationship as the male child grows up and, gets his muscles and his hormones and everything. And she doesn't understand him, and she gets mad at him, and she puts him on Ritalin and nags him, and he becomes very unhappy. And this is not just a small thing. This is a big thing. And so the MGTOW men, and you all feel free to comment if I don't get this right, have decided to just withdraw in the face of the feminization of society and like the media and even the legal system. The court system, and I'm not saying everything in there is bad. I'm saying it has gone to a point where it's becoming very bad for the man. And I'm also not saying that people shouldn't ever divorce. I mean, obviously, if there's situations where the woman is unfaithful, or the man is unfaithful, or the man is abusing the woman, or, there's drug addiction or alcohol or whatever, something that makes it absolutely untenable, then divorce, seems a reasonable option. But nowadays, quickie divorces, I mean, what the men are saying is the women they encounter get the quickie divorce to get the money because the court system will make him pay her. And so she just wants the money, and then she moves on. And a lot of times the wife just goes out gallivanting, goes back to clubbing and hanging out with her girlfriends and whatever. I mean, I can't claim to be able to know everything about these situations except what these men have said about their side of it. And maybe the women have their side, and if you're a woman and you're divorced and you've experienced some horrible situation and you want to explain that, please comment on that. someone brought up the point that, part of the feminist movement was equal pay for equal work. I don't have a problem with that. What I had a problem with when I saw feminism rise was, you're basically, when you enter the money-making realm, the business world, you're entering the world that is mostly a male world. And so you're basically getting on line competing with men, which makes you, as one guy pointed out, you're like a beta male. You're like a man, but you're weaker, and you don't have the same drive and same vision. And so why would you want to even be in there competing on that level? And I've also made videos where, if you want to be a woman, be a woman. That doesn't mean become a sub-male. It means be a woman. And you know what women are really good at? Women are really good at taking care of people. Women are really good at nurturing. And I'm talking, this is the way God designed you. You can say, yes, but I'm a rocket scientist. I get that. I'm not saying you can't be a rocket scientist. If that's what you really, really want to do, woman, okay. But understand that if that's where you put your the whole focus of your life, and you don't become a wife and mother, you are missing out on half of who you are. And a man is not missing out on having a baby if he can't be the one having the baby. He misses out on having the baby if the woman won't have a baby. But he cannot have that baby and raise it if he chooses to. He doesn't have that option where we do. And what happens when you are putting all your focus on being the best mother and the best wife is, you raise great kids, great citizens for the next generation, and you are not alone in your old age. You have people who want to take care of you. Otherwise, you fall back on the system. And you wind up in a nursing home or a hospital where no one cares about you. And, if you're okay with that, then you're going to have that life. But God designed you to have the other life. And he gave you special gifts, special hormones and everything else to make you really good at being a homemaker. And there is a whole world in there. All right. So that's just to the women. Back to the men. My question for the MGTOW and the incel guys, because now I'm understanding more of why they're doing what they're doing, is what is the long term? What is the long-term future that you all are picturing? Are you picturing you are just going to be a bachelor your entire life? And again, I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but God's designed woman because he said it is not good for man to be alone. Because I know some of the incels are, saying burn it down, burn everything down. They're so angry they just want to trash this society and start over. Okay, so if you start over, what is that going to look like? I'm interested. How will you set up this new society if you get your wish and the old one burns up? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'd like to know the picture in your mind, because 30 years, 50 years ago when this feminism started, and some of us saw it and thought, nah, I don't feel the need to be a career woman. I could have worked if I wanted to, but I really didn't want to. I wanted to get married and have children. And I watched as the feminist movement happened, and I watched as, TV shows portrayed people being divorced as a good thing and single mom households as a good thing, and it can all work out and we'll all blend into a huge big family. And I wondered if that reality was going to come about. And it sounds like for some families it does, but for a good amount of families it doesn't. And so I didn't picture the next step, which was all these angry men. And they talk about pain, and it's emotional pain. And they talk about how women have just turned into these creatures that aren't even desirable. They are so heartless and bloodthirsty that they kill their own children within their wombs, and not just for a health reason, but because they just don't want to have a baby right now for convenience. And if my partner was like that, if my partner had said, oh yeah, let's kill this child because we don't want to provide for it or whatever, I couldn't have stayed married in that situation, because my children to me are extremely important. And part of my life or role as a mom was to keep those kids alive. It goes against my very grain to think about killing children. And so a MGTOW man sees that in a woman, and that's not attractive. And, I'm kind of with him. And I know you're probably saying, yeah, well, a guy sitting around playing video games and his t-shirt in his parents' basement isn't attractive either. Yes, got that. I don't know how successful those guys are at this whole thing called life either. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts, but I'd really like to hear what the future picture for the MGTOW guys looks like. Because if there's as many of you as it seems like there are, and you're either really angry or you're withdrawing, what are you picturing happening years down the road? Excuse me. All right. Bless you. Shalom. One other point I wanted to cover. I don't know where the idea that men have no emotions comes from, or they can't be emotional. I'm not sure where that comes from. I know millennials think that men should be allowed their emotions. I wonder if men being stoic is men refusing to let people see their emotions because they feel those emotions so strongly. And I've had people laugh at me when they've heard me say that, but if you look at all the songs and poetry and books that men have written, and a lot of it is talking about love or disappointment or whatever, men have very strong emotions. Probably stronger, at least they will commit suicide over emotions. If they are miserable enough, they will commit suicide and do it in a way that's not a cry for help like women do, but do it in a way that just ends it. Their suicide options are usually quite violent and quite decisive. And I think that's because of the strength of their feelings. And I think that's why they may be stoic about them, because their feelings are so strong. And they don't like to be taken advantage of. They don't like, nobody likes emotional pain. Come on. So if they're being dealt emotional pain and tons of it, that's probably one reason why they're withdrawing and not sharing those feelings. Just my thoughts on it, just my observations.